Welcome to afrimind. Today we're going to have a conversation with Yomi Jemibewon, one of the founding partners of Cardinal Stone, a world-class African investment bank headquartered in Lagos, Nigeria. Yomi runs the principal investments division within the bank, which invests in high-growth companies in Africa. And today we're going to have several conversations. Firstly, we're going to talk about some of the peculiar challenges in setting up a world-class institution in Africa. And then secondly, we're going to go into Yomi's turf and talk more about some of the things he looks for when he's trying to invest in portfolio companies. And we're going to also have a discussion on some of the challenges, the unique challenges that companies face when they're trying to raise funds in Africa. So thank you once again and welcome to the conversation. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to, you're the founder, one of the co-founders of Cardinal Stone Partners, which is an investment bank in Nigeria. And I really like your mission. One thing I liked about it was that you said you wanted to be a world-class investment bank in Nigeria. And so I wanted to understand, why do you think that's important? And what was the process of setting up a world-class investment bank in Nigeria?
Wow, process. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, what was the genesis of all this?
Yeah.
I guess the company was founded by 4 partners. I'm one of the partners. And I think each of us had either recently returned back from the UK or from the US from working with what we would, term a best practices firm,
yeah,
or was working in one in Nigeria. And there were like 3 to 4 motivating factors. Yeah. Number one, each of us believed we had exposure of how to do things in a best practices, sustainable way in the different firms where we were coming from. Each of us wanted to work in an organization that would espouse that would allow us to do that. But more importantly, an organization that would attract other people like us. We didn't think collectively that the kind of organization that would allow us to execute our vision the way we wanted existed, or even if it existed, it would allow us to come in and do things the way we thought it should be done. Yeah. And so we thought it was best to just go and create one where we could from day one do things the way we believed it should be done, and over time attract other people like us for sustainability. That's basically the motivation of Cardinal Stone. To answer your first question, why best practices or world-class firm of African origin?
I love that.
And we had to make it's a subtle distinction, but we didn't want to say we're an African investment bank or top or best practices African investment bank. We want to be a world-class investment bank. And what do I mean by that? We want, if somebody gets off the phone with us or gets off a meeting with us, says, you know what, that could have been a meeting anywhere else in the world with a Goldman, Bain, McKinsey. I felt like I was dealing with the top of the top. That's what we want to do. So that's where the world class comes from. And we find that, it's very easy because of our infrastructure challenges and our peculiarities in Africa. It's very easy for people to say, this is Africa. We can't, they use that as excuses. Yeah. And we don't think that's necessary. In terms of why is it important? Why is the African origin important? Well, everybody has to pick what their differentiating factor is. You can have a best in class anything from anywhere in the world, but what differentiates you? 4 of us are Africans. 4 of us are Nigerians by origin, but our vision goes beyond Nigeria. Yeah. We understand the culture, we understand the market, we know how it should be done, and we have a unique perspective of how it should be done.
And what were some of the challenges that you faced? So did you find the regulatory environment favorable and friendly to setting up an investment bank, or what was the process really?
Let me start with the challenges. I think some of the challenges you face are the same challenges you face in setting up any kind of business. And regulators are not a problem. I mean, anywhere in the world, there are regulatory nuances that you must understand, you must respect, and you must find a way to play by them. And we haven't found that to be a challenge in Nigeria thus far. In terms of very high level, top 2-3 challenges, they're more in with respect to executing. The first is understanding that being a really good manager is not the same thing as being a good business owner. Yeah. You know, and that doesn't mean you should not, you know, aspire to be a business owner, an entrepreneur. But one of the things we learned, I mean, we were very excited to start Cardinal Stone. You know, we got our pitch together. We identified the people we wanted to be our mentors. We approached them. They were excited. You know, we raised the capital. We got our offices. We were excited, and we started.
Yeah.
Well, we realized through executing that because you were a great VP at Goldman, because you're a great manager at Bain, or a director at Standard Chartered, and you really did good work there, doesn't mean you will be a good MD or partner at an investment bank. So we had to learn a lot of things afresh.
Yeah.
You know, people underestimate the power of the institution that they're coming from, and so we had to learn that. Like, you know, we didn't know that, right? We learned that. I mean, you know that, you know, all these firms are powerful, and you know they have other things that make the chain work the way it does. But you underestimate that because you don't see it on a day-to-day. What you do is you do your good pitches, your good model, you go present, and you get the deal, and you think you've just gotten the deal because of the good work you've done. There is so much. What does it take to convince the client that, you know, you are the person, you know, to hire? And especially when you're starting afresh. The second big thing that I'll jump out is just having to learn what it would take to get market acceptance. You know, 4 bright guys, great resumes, you know, started this great company. Now we have Fola Adiola as our chairman, so we think we can kick in doors and get the deals. What you find is Africa has a lot of well-educated,
smart,
well-experienced, intelligent people who have good relationships. So by the time, you know, when we started, we used to put our brochures or our CVs in front of people.
That's it.
And we will talk a lot about what we've done before. Okay, so what? So why should I hire you? And we had to learn that, you know.
So why should they hire you? What is your differentiating factor? And how did you actually get people to, you know,
so there were many
buy into your vision?
So there were many things, right? First of all, we felt we felt we could do things in a different way.
Yes.
Best practices, as I said. Yeah. But then, if you've not seen best practices, how do you know that that's what you want? Exactly. Especially if it's being done for you, right? So, apart from that, we believed, you know, we could do some things better, you know, in terms of our approach, you know, of carrying the clients along. But it was more than that. What we found over time is you have to be liked. People have to want to give you a chance. Yes. And there are different ways to get that. I mean, and what we learned as Cardinal Stone is, you know, unlike when we started and we would spend the first 30, 45 minutes talking about our resumes, we did that very quickly. And then we would get into an emotional discussion of, you know, why we are young professionals trying to do things differently and how we can't have success if people don't give us a chance. Yeah. And how we believe, you know, the person in front of us is someone that can give us a chance. There were times when we had to actually work for free to say, look, let's prove to you we can do this differently from what the other people are doing. And if you don't like, don't pay us. I mean, we don't say that today anymore, but I mean, it's what we had to do to get our first deal under our belt. You know, what you find is you have to make a decision and ask yourself, what does this mandate mean to me? Is it the bonus I'm going to pay at the end of the year? Is it the entry I need into this space? Is it just to build a relationship with this particular person? And that allows you to take different positions in terms of, you know, what you ask for and how you approach it. And we had to learn that, right? Yes. You know, and we had to make a lot of mistakes. We had to walk out. People had to call us back and say, you know what, you know, your approach didn't work because, you know, you turned the chief off. Yeah. You know, and we had to learn that, and there were times we had to go back and apologize, and those same people gave us the mandates. So it's learning that it's a different market, and you just need to learn how to get market acceptance. I think the third thing I would say is just human capital is our biggest problem in Africa. Not that there are not enough intelligent, you know, smart, motivated people. It's not easy to get them, you know, the kind of people you want on the same team. And, you know, in a market where, you know...
In what way? Sorry.
Well, I mean, look at many of the firms in Nigeria today, for example. You know, you will find that, by and large, a lot of firms have one key man.
It's true. Very true.
One key man. And you know, another point that's very related to the question you asked is, by the time you're grooming people in the in your organization, because there's such high demand for them, they're easily poached. There's a high turnover rate. So what do you need to do to attract and retain top quality talent across your organization? That is actually one of the biggest questions all organizations ask in Africa. Because the moment you even attract them and you train them to a certain level, they're poached, you know, because they're a hot talent. So, you know, what you find is a dispersion, like, you know, of great quality across many firms. But it's hard to find, you know, a concentration in firms. And that's one of the reasons why we at Cardinal Stone also, we wanted to be different. And when we looked at, you know, a lot of firms, you know, a lot of startups in Nigeria and Africa, we saw that it was often one key man, and we didn't want that. We wanted, you know...
and that's not sustainable as well.
Exactly, and that's why you find that when the key man passes on, or when there's an issue, company dies. And so we were really thinking about sustainability. And also, if you notice, in terms of, you know, when you asked me why Cardinal Stone, I said we're also thinking of attracting other like-minded people for sustainability. So that is actually it's one of our biggest headaches today. How do you identify, create the right, you know, incentives to attract and then retain, you know, like minds, you know, to continue growing this vision? So I've said a lot. I don't know if I've answered all your questions.
You have, absolutely.